Welcome to the After Hour 6 p.m. Ask Chuck Bowser RCDD your favorite questions. You may have noticed that last week we did not have a show. Oh, hold on. Why are you not hearing sound? Do 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 do. Testing 1 2 3. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now, George? There's no audio on the countdown. So let me try something real quick. Since it's just you and I. Look at that. Nice. Very cool. Didn't know you could do that. So you may have noticed that last week we did not have an after hour show, even though there was one scheduled. My brother was in from out of town, and I had planned on doing a show, but we just got kind of sidetracked and it just never got done. So I apologize for that because there was a couple questions left outstanding from the previous show to that. So, so I apologize for that. It is what it is, but we're back. We're back in the saddle again, as some people would say. So, we always start off with, what are you drinking? Today, Chuck is just drinking plain water again. What are you guys drinking? Put it in the chat box. What are you drinking? And I'm going to apologize in advance because you may hear my dog whining in the background at some point today's show because she is just wound up tighter than a drum, and it's raining outside, so I can't take her outside to burn off her energy. So, it is what it is. So what are you drinking? Put it in the chat box. So, yes, Chuck is back. Cable Dog Supreme. Yes, thank you for. Did you miss me? Yeah, I apologize. Like I said, I was scheduled to have a show last week, but my brother was in from out of town, and I'm going to actually have I'm going to interview him for a show, and he's going to be on one. So George is not drinking anything. Okay. So what else is everybody else drinking? Let me see. Cable Dog is drinking core water. Core water. I have no idea what that is. You're gonna have to let us know what core water is, because I have not the slightest idea of what that is. So got to turn it back off. There we go. So after we do the what are you drinking challenge, that the next thing is going to be what? The Acronym Challenge. Acronym Challenge. Remember, what is an MDU? MDU. What is that? What is it? If you know the answer, put it in the chat box. And of course, I can't do the Acronym Challenge without doing the Acronym Challenge slogan. Help control the acronym population. Spay or neuter your acronyms now. We already have enough. We don't need any more. So what does MDU mean? Any takers? I'm keeping with the theme of this week because the theme this week on the LinkedIn channel is acronyms that begin with M. Right? So I'm going with the same acronym. So what MDU? What does MDU stand for? So let me see. We got one vote in here already. So main distribution unit. MDU. Modulated something? Nope. It stands for, you ready for this? Multiple dwelling units. Multiple dwelling units, MDUs. Think of like an apartment building. That's an MDU. Right. So let's hold on. There it goes. This is my first time on my new platform. So I gave up on StreamYard after about the fourth or fifth time it really messed me up, and holy Toledo, was it just a mess. So got a new platform now. There's going to be a little bit of a learning curve going with it. I apologize. Hey, did you notice we're almost at 300 subscribers on YouTube? Almost. We're like 297 when I looked at it earlier today. So if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe now. Help me breach that 300 subscriber count. Okay? Please do that. Oh, and one more thing. You may remember a little while back, we had a show from Trend Networks on their toner and probe, right? And I gave it away to somebody. Well, the guy who won it put in his wrong email address. And when I sent him an email, it rejected back. So I put out a post on LinkedIn. I put out a post, a bunch of other places saying, if you know this guy, please help him get in touch with me. And I gave him till close of business today. Have not after this class, after this after hour session, I will check the email. If there's nothing there, I'm going to award it to somebody new. So there you go. All right. So last week or 2 weeks ago, actually, I finished off the show and there was 2 questions that I didn't answer. And one of them was, how do you test for EMI or RFI? And I've seen it done in the past. I'm not an expert on this. It's a handheld unit and they just measure the frequency stuff. But I've got a special guest coming on in a couple of weeks to talk about that. So we'll cover that one more in depth when they come on. And then there was another question, and the other question came from, hold on, let me put on my safety glasses so these don't injure my eyes. The words don't jump off the page and injure my eyes. And it was from Michael. And Michael said, what is wave division multiplexing and what is the benefit to multi-mode? And I didn't answer the question because I was already out of time, but I told him I would do it on the next show. So what is it? Wave division multiplexing is a way to simultaneously, share many different signals on one signal strand. Now, there's many different colors of light, right? There's reds and greens and oranges and yellows, but you can put many different colors down a single fiber strand all at the same time. Now, you can prove this theory by taking a light and shining it into a prism. And what's going to happen is that prism will refract that light and break it out into its different colors. So it's the same thing with the light going down with the fiber. Now, the interesting thing is when you start putting different color lights down the fiber, those different lights don't interfere with each other because each color has its own specific wavelength. I saw a video from one of the fiber classes that I took a long time ago, and the instructor took a red laser and a green laser, and he shined the red laser down the fiber, and then he put the green, and coming out the other side, you would see both the red and the green distinctly. And then just to prove that they weren't interfering with each other, he turned them back off and turned them on in the reverse order, and you could still see those 2 colors, the red and the green, coming out the other end. So you can put multiple colors down a single strand. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, so if we can put multiple strands down, what's the benefit? The benefit is you can send more than one signal down a single strand of fiber at that same time. Think about it this way. If you have a customer, and the customer has a fiber optic cable that connects 2 buildings together, right? It's a direct buried or underground. No, it's underground with conduit, right? And there's other cables inside this conduit, and there's not enough room for any more cabling, and they want to have some more capacity between those 2 buildings. With literally with use of simple couplers and filters, you can take light sources and combine them together from different transmitters and put them on the same fiber strand. Isn't that pretty cool? And then you need to have the same filters and splitters on the other end to extract those lights back out. So that gives you the ability to have more than one signal on a fiber. You can increase its capacity without actually changing the fiber. Ponds use this type of technology today, except for they're using it in both directions. Okay, but there's more than just that. There's also this thing called dense wavelength division multiplexing. Dense wavelength division multiplexing. Now, with this, you can actually support up to 64 channels as the light sources are separated by 0.8 nanometer spacing. Now, DWDM uses 1450 to 1650 nanometer wavelengths instead of the normal single mode 1310 to 1550. So you can put up to 64 channels across that. But wait, there's more. There's also a coarse division multiplexing. Coarse wave division multiplexing. Now, with coarse division multiplexing, you only get 20 channels because those channels are separated by 20 nanometers. So there's more spacing between them. But you do have to use low water peak fiber when using that. Okay. So the next question is from Sean in Silver Spring, and Sean asked us, where's the string? Okay, here you go. So Sean says, why did I take my glasses off? Oh, sorry, here's my glasses. I came across a job listing that I like, but I don't have all of the qualifications. What should I do? What should I do? And that is such a great question. Such a great question. Now, the fact of the matter is that if you meet the majority of those requirements, say like 7 out of 10, right? You should apply. Because first, you never know who you're competing against for that particular job. The person that may also be applying for that job may not have, they may only have 4 of the 10 or 3 of the 10, right? You might be the most qualified person responding to that. Never let the qualifications stop you from applying for a job that you're interested in, period, right? There's a quote, and the quote's attributed to Richard Branson. And I can't verify if he actually said this or not, but everybody says he said it, so I'm going with the same thing. And it goes something like this. It says, if somebody offers you an amazing opportunity, but you are not sure you can do it, say yes, and then learn how to do it. Same thing applies here. Now, I'm not saying that you should lie to a potential new employer, right? Be honest with them right up front. When I went to work for one company, I told them that though I had terminated fiber, I was more of a copper person than a fiber person. And I had way more copper experience than I did fiber experience. And they said, not a problem. And then they hired me, and then they put me through some fiber classes. So always be honest with them. Never try to lie to a potential employer, right? So now think about it this way. When the companies put out those job listings, right, the hiring manager sends the request to the HR person. The HR person knows nothing about communications. So the HR person says, well, tell me all the things that you need to have, all the qualifications. So the hiring manager lists out all the qualifications, and think of it as like a wish list, right? They put down everything. I want an RCDD with 20 years of experience and blah, 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 and all this stuff. It's a wish list. It really is. There is no such thing as the perfect candidate for any single job. Everybody's going to be missing some part of those qualifications. And the other candidates, like I said just a few minutes ago, they might be missing the critical qualifications, because when they have to list those qualifications, there's going to be some that are more important than others. And why is my phone ringing? I apologize for that. I should have put it on airplane mode. Oops. Yeah. So, they may be missing some critical qualifications that you have. So always definitely apply for that. Now, the key is, number one, to be honest about your shortcomings, but the key is to highlight all of your experiences, all of your trainings, any projects that you did that directly relates to those qualifications that they listed that you have. Now, don't put just when you highlight these qualifications, highlight them in the cover letter, highlight them in the resume, and then make sure when you're doing the interview, you talk about that as well. Remember, a couple shows back, somebody asked me something about resumes, some tips for resumes. So if you need to write a resume, go back and look at that show. And I told you should have several resumes depending on which type of opportunity it is that you're seeking. Now, I'm not looking for a job now, but if I were looking for a job, I would definitely have 2 or 3 different types of resumes. One to highlight my installation design experience, another one to highlight my training experience. And depending on the job that I'm applying for, they would get that resume. Again, I'm not actively seeking for a job because I love my job. I love what I do. Now, we're doing all this. Think about it this way. What is the worst thing that can happen if they say no? You just don't get the job, right? So even though you don't qualify for anything that they list, I'd still apply for that job, right? And I wish you good luck. I hope that you definitely get that job. Now let's go on to the next question. Remember, if you have any questions, put them in the chat box, right? So, Cable Dog said something when we were talking about the refracting. He says the colors refract differently. Exactly right. That's how that prism works, right? So the next question comes from Bobby in Oregon. Bobby wants to know, what is a NID? NID, Network Interface Device. Network Interface Device. So generally, a NID is used as a demarcation point for apartment buildings, homes, small businesses, stuff like that. The most common one that you're going to see, especially like in a residential type of area, is they mount them on the outside of the building. And it's that gray box where the telephone line comes in from the outside, and it comes in and it lands on one side of the network interface device. And then on the other side is where the cables from the house comes back to the network interface device, and then they screw them onto the terminal. That's the old way of doing it. Now they'll run a cable into the house and they'll build out a regular frame like they would with a regular commercial office building. But it's just a box where it changes the demarcation changes ownership between the service provider or access provider and the people who are actually living in or renting that particular house. Now generally they're not locked. They do have this. You have to have a special can wrench to get into them, but you can get into them with a socket set. Ask me how I know that one, right? You don't have to have the special can wrench that they have. You can get it with a regular socket. You can get into them and stuff. And there's different kinds. There's some with just 2 circuits. There's some with 4 circuits and 6 circuits, and there's all different kinds out there that you can get add on. So it's really just a demarcation point for your residential or your small commercial buildings, stuff like that. That's what a network interface device is. So the next question, and again, put your questions in the comment box if you have any, right? So the next question is from Scott, and Scott is from Wisconsin. I wish I was in Wisconsin right now. I bet you it's not as humid out there. Scott says, we are doing our first data center job with a raised floor. What are some precautions that we need to know? If you have some advice for Scott for doing work in a data center in a raised floor environment, put it in the chat box. But here's some ones that I came up with off the top of my head. I got this one earlier today, and I read it on my lunch break. And so these ones I just kind of jotted down. There's probably even more, right? So the first one is, number one, secure your work area, right? Caution tape, cones, ladders, apprentices. So, right? So when you open up those floor tiles, make sure that you protect that area so nobody falls in it and gets hurt, especially your own people. I did a project once for a contractor many moons ago, and we were working in a data center, and our guys went to lunch, came back. They didn't secure the work area. One of the guys stepped into the hole and hurt themselves. So, yeah. So the injury might not happen to a customer. It might also happen to you as well. Shotzi's in the house. Yeah, Shotzi says, have a jacket, right? Absolutely. That's a great idea as well. I remember I used to do work all the time in data centers in the summer, and I'd take a sweater or a light jacket with me. My now ex-wife would always ask me, why are you taking a jacket to work in July? Because it's like 75 degrees in the data center with like 0% humidity. So yeah, so secure your work area. And if you have to leave the room, go to lunch like my previous crew did, close off all the tiles. That way there's no potential of accident, right? So the second tip I have for them is, if you're bringing in any big, huge spools or cabinets or racks or lots of equipment, lots of boxes, lots of weight, make sure you check with the general contractor to find out what is the dynamic load of the floor, because you don't want to be putting in a whole bunch of weight on the floor if it can't support all that weight. I'll give you an example. If you bring in a spool of 900 pair cable, 900 pair cable weighs 1.5 pounds a foot. So that means 1,000-foot spool weighs 1,500 pounds. Yeah, 1.5 pounds a foot times 1,000. That's 1,500 pounds. I was at 15,000. Oof. Yeah, that's a lot of weight. And sometimes you'll find that they don't want you to put on a whole bunch of weight until the floor is set up correctly. What they do is they actually they'll put some glue on the floor. They'll put the stanchions on that, and then they'll build the stringers off that and then put the floor down. So sometimes they'll tell you can't even walk on the raised floor for a day or two until all that glue sets up. Right? So make sure that you go ahead and support that. Ask them how much you can put in there, and ask them again, what is that dynamic load? So that way you don't actually hurt anything by bringing in too much stuff, right? So then the next thing is, come up with a system on how to make sure that the tiles get put back in the exact place that they got removed from, right? What we used to do is we used to take painter's tape, and we would put a piece of tape on. We'd write 1, 2, 3, 4 on each one of those tiles. We take another piece of painter's tape, and where the hole came out of, we put 1, 2, 3, 4 and stuff like that. That way, we know that tile went in that hole, and this tile went in that hole. Now you're probably wondering why. because an access floor, raised floor is like a jigsaw puzzle, right? And you do a jigsaw puzzle, those pieces never really kind of fit together right. So if you take one and put it in another hole that it didn't come out of, you can have it may not fit exactly perfect in that spot, and you could have a crack there. And that crack could cause it to be wobbly when you're walking on it. It could cause dust to go down underneath the floor. It could cause air leaking from underneath the floor to come up if it's a pressurized floor system, which could cause problems. We'll talk about that more in a minute. So make sure you put them back in the exact place that you took them out of. That's going to be very, very critical, right? The next one is, if you're working in an existing data center and it's a pressurized floor, what that means is the Liebert system takes all that hot air from the top of the room, then chills it down, sends all that cold air under the floor. Well, that cold air is looking for some place to go. So generally, you're going to find like a perforated tile or a cutout. Sometimes we'll do a cutout inside the rack. Sometimes we'll do a perforated tile in front of the rack. So that way, when it comes up, it sucks that cold air in and then sends that hot air out. Sucks the cold air, sends hot air out. So if you start opening up a whole bunch of tiles and stuff in there, and removing them, all that cold air that's supposed to be going up into the cabinets, it's not going up into the cabinets now. You could actually cause equipment to overheat, right? So and that could cause you a lot of problems. So that's the next thing. And then the next tip that I thought of as I was working today is, and this, you find this a lot when you're putting in like cable tray and stuff. You got to open up a really long line of tiles, and then you got to put in that cable tray. Well, you got to remove the stringers. Make sure you check with the GC to understand how many stringers you can remove without causing any problems with integrity of the floor. Only remove as many stringers as you actually need, right? And then make sure, if you can, try to remove them out one at a time, not all of them at once, okay? Then let me see what else I had in there. Remove the stringers one at a time. And also ask the GC for assistance for removing them, so you know how many. Because if you have the flooring contractor there and they help you take it out, that way if something goes wrong with it, it's not your fault and it's their fault, and they can help you put it back together. And then you don't have to worry about getting back charged or anything like that, right? The other tip I came up with, if you're working in a data center, is especially with existing data centers. As I mentioned earlier, you could cause the equipment to overheat. And there's a rule called the half-life rule and the electronics rule. The half-life rule says for every 10 degrees above ambient temperature that a piece of equipment gets exposed to, the life expectancy of that piece of equipment is reduced by half. Now, most network equipment has about a 3 to 5 year lifespan on it. That doesn't necessarily mean that the equipment's going to go bad all of a sudden in 5 years and stuff like that, but it will cause that piece of equipment to actually overheat and then cause it to expire early. So always keep that in mind when you're doing it. Think about that. Here's a good rule of thumb to go by. Only remove 3 tiles at a time inside of a data center if possible. Try not to move more than 3. There's going to be times when you need to move more than 3, but try to limit to 3 or less. That way you're disrupting that data center as little as possible, right? And that was the only questions I had today. So we do have a couple minutes. Do you guys have any questions before we sign out for the last day? Let me see. Anybody typing any questions in the chat box? So did you guys notice today, or actually Tuesday, the Name That Tool meme on LinkedIn? Nobody has guessed it right yet. And nobody's got it right yet. Here's the interesting thing. It's actually a brand spanking new tool. And I interviewed the person who invented that. And that will be the subject of Monday's podcast. So make sure you download Monday's podcast and make sure you listen to the end, because I'm giving one of those tools away, right? I'm giving one of those tools away. And you might be with the lucky one who does that, who gets that tool. It's not a fiber lock. It's not a fiber lock at all. It's a pretty cool little tool. Actually, I'll give you a real life. I'll show you to you in real life because I have it. The one I'm going to be shipping off right here. Right? And maybe since you guys are here on my live stream, maybe I'll demonstrate to you what this tool actually is. Right? Because nobody's been able to guess this so far. So this tool, now it's called a. Ooh, I almost dropped it off my desk. It's called an untwist tool. Untwist tool. Yeah. Isn't that pretty cool? So you're probably thinking, untwist, what's that mean? That means that you can use it to untwist pairs. And this is going to be perfect for you, like if you're doing, mod end connectors and stuff like that. So let me grab my piece of cable here. This one's already kind of untwisted from the demo that we did on the podcast. Let me see, where's my cable strippers? I don't have my cable strippers here. There we go. We'll take off the other end. So here I have a pair. See, it's twisted. So with the untwist tool, you stick it inside the untwist tool, you twist it around counterclockwise, and look what it does. It untwists that tool for you. And then you can take it and put it around the side and then just kind of pull it up, and then boom, it straightens them out. So if you're doing like that mod end connector, right? The cool thing about this tool is you can get a precision screwdriver and put it on here, and that could be a powered thing. And that's going to be perfect if you're doing a whole bunch of connectors, a whole bunch of patch panels. So it's pretty cool little tool. So make sure you watch that show to the end on Monday to figure out to enter into the contest to win one of these. So now some people, you beat me to it. Some people might have arthritis, right? And I'm one of those. I don't have arthritis, but I'm telling you, when I'm terminating a bunch of jacks and stuff, my hands hurt after a while. But if you're doing work like up in the north where it's cold, right? You're doing a camera on top of a pole, right? With that precision screwdriver, with the untwist tool on it, and then put them right in, punch it down, connect it in, or crimp on your mod end connector. So it's a pretty cool little tool. Alrighty, nobody has actually put in any more questions. So I guess with that, we're just going to call this show early by a minute and a half. So until next time, everybody.